Okay, quickly, this is English 1302-010, spring semester 2017. This is a short oral presentation without PowerPoint. The presentations with a PowerPoint were done earlier this semester.
Okay. As Mr. Stir already mentioned previously, that Emily Dickinson's poems can be interpreted in many ways, and that also applies to this particular poem. Wild Nights by Emily Dickinson. And Emily Dickinson's short poem is a symbolic poem written in ABCD scheme. And this poem, which Dickinson's use of symbols is so pervasive and internally consistent that her reference to the outside world being symbolized internally becomes secondary. In Dickinson's poem, she illustrates the need to express her emotions in a dense manner. And I believe that she carefully chose these words that she used in this poem to express a stern presence of desire and a gradual uprise in emotion. I'm going to read you the first stanza in the poem, and I'm going to explain it afterwards. Wild nights, were I with thee, wild nights should be our luxury. This stanza has 4 lines, each of 4 beats, which rise and fall in a dramatic way. In the second line, where I with thee, explaining that she's trying to express that she's either contemplating where she's at in life, or where that person's at in life, or why isn't she where she wants to be. And in line 3, Wild Night Should Be is just confirming that she doesn't exactly she wants to go and find well, okay. You have to read the poem aloud. Also worth mentioning is the last 3 lines of the rhyme, which gives the listener the feeling of sliding into something wonderful. Keeping in mind that when you make the long E sound, your mouth is smiling. The key to the stanza, and indeed to the key to any wild nights analysis, the line with the word luxury. The word luxury these days tends to refer to what material, like what do you have materialistically. And back then, it wasn't necessarily material stuff, so maybe she meant like the lust or the love of another. And so she was introducing the desire for another lover. And if we move on to the second stanza of the poem, which is also 4 lines, I'm going to read it to you and then go further into detail. Fertile the winds to a hardened port, done with the compass, done with the chart. Futile meaning pointless. So in this particular stanza, in this line, she's trying to express that no matter what a wind or a storm could bring, it's pointless because she's in love, or he is in love with that person. So it's pointless because it's going to happen either way, or it's not going to change. Done with the compass and done with the chart, meaning also confirming that she doesn't need to look, or he doesn't need to look any further, that's who they're in love with. And moving on to the third stanza, rowing in Eden, the sea, might I but more tonight in thee. Okay, first let's note some of the obvious. The next thing to notice is the reference to Eden. There are many ways to interpret this poem in a poem analysis. Eden is a place where you would, you would consider, I guess, paradise, referring back to like Adam and Eve. It could mean two different things, either like paradise or sinning, because that is where, you know, they sinned, or Eve sinned. But it could be interpreted in whichever way you would like. The last three lines of Wild Nights are very, very important to the interpretation. We can take the "ah" in the second line of the third stanza as expressing a feeling of action, of taking action or doing something. So maybe at this point in the poem, because in the beginning it started off more like a thought or a conversation between two people, and they weren't actually doing anything. They were just suggesting that they should be together. And then in the middle of the poem, it was suggesting that, or confirming that they were wanting to be together. And then the third stanza was more like taking action, like, hey, I'm going to go out and find you tonight and be with you tonight. Finally, let me go back. It is important. Finally, it is not the poem's verbal use of words or the confidence in the words. Rather, we feel the intensity of longing and desire as the reader moves from thought to action in a symbolic way. And as I said before, this poem is a very dense poem. And the surface layer of this poem, you would imagine that, or as I expressed to you, that it means like longing for another person or desire to be with someone else. But I did listen to the poem read different ways, and there was one particular poem that I heard that made me change how I interpreted it in the beginning. So if you would like to play that poem for everyone to hear, it would completely change the interpretation of what I told you. And I thought that would open up, I guess, people's minds to see how exactly a poem can change interpretation, or how many different ways it can be interpreted symbolically, or just by hearing it a different way. That's it.
Thank you.